Hi, I'm Sherry and welcome back to my channel. And before I begin today's video, I just want to thank everybody who commented, who liked, who shared, who subscribed. I'm absolutely blown away by the amount of subscribers and watch hours I already have, so thank you so much. So in today's video, I'm going to talk about 10 top tips to develop the mindset that you need to upcycle. It really helps to be able to come from the right place in your thinking to be able to upcycle. All right, tip number one is to understand why you want to upcycle. There are many reasons, and I'm just going to name a few of them here, but to understand why you want to upcycle will help you to look for the certain pieces and kind of know how to put things together in the long run. So one of the reasons that I started upcycling was for the environment. It actually bothered me that tons and tons of clothing and fabric just gets discarded because there's no outlet for them. And then the other one was I come from the generation of a penny saved is a penny earned, so it bothered me to throw away things that were really good that my kids outgrew, or that I just didn't like anymore, didn't fit me right or whatever, just to not have any place to go with it. So I've made myself a list here. So the very first one is, are you doing this for money? Are you doing this, which is okay to do it for money. Understanding why you're doing it, it will help you know where to go to look for the pieces. If you're doing it as a business, then you need to think about looking for tops and pieces to cut off that aren't necessarily in your size. Like, you need to think about other people's styles, what they might want to wear. Or if you're doing it just for yourself, then you can focus on what do I like to wear. And so understanding why you're upcycling and will give you a place to begin. So that's my first tip. This is really how it all starts, is to know where to begin. Okay, tip number two is something that I've already seen in my comment section, people asking for exact sizes or measurements or things like this. Upcycling is different than regular sewing. So you need to understand this. When you upcycle, it's more like building on the fly. Like, you might cut something off and go, okay, now what am I going to do next? Where when you're sewing with patterns, you have it all laid out. You have instructions to follow. You know exactly how much fabric you're going to buy. Every little piece, is notched, so you know exactly where everything meets. But upcycling is way different than that. Most upcycling, you're going to have to build, you're going to have to be really flexible, and you're going to have to build as you're going along. You might get, a tremendous idea as you're going along, and you're going to have to be able to wing it. Like, you can't have everything plotted to the T. So, and this is for most upcycling. So my suggestion here is just to, it's different. To try to think kind of outside the box thinking here, because you can't approach this like regular sewing with patterns and instructions and all that. So that's tip number two, is to understand that you're going to have to reach down into the very depths of yourself for all your creative juices to get some good pieces, because you have to make it up as you go a lot of times. Part of tip number two is that you have to be willing to experiment and fail. You have to understand that not every garment is going to work out, and you have to be willing to accept some of the losses with some of the gains here, because it's just like an artist going at a canvas. They don't know for sure it's going to turn out to be a great painting, right? So it's art, so this is what you got to do. And that takes me into tip number three. Okay, tip number three is that sewing in and of itself is an art form. So when you start putting pieces together and you start making something, it becomes an artistic process. Even if you're just following an exact pattern and you're picking out the fabrics you might like, you're picking out, laces, things like that. It's still art, but it's much harder when you don't have that stringent sort of outline to follow. Artists all draw inspiration from each other. They will put pictures on their walls they like. They will peruse books they buy that have all kinds of inspirational pieces. They will take classes from other artists. They will even copy directly, as much as they can, another artist's work. Well, it is the same way in upcycling. You have the same rights to do all those things. And if people say, oh, she copied so-and-so, everybody's copying everybody. Everybody's getting ideas from each other. That is what art is all about. That's how you learn. That's how you grow. So my suggestion is to take, I like to take the pictures that I see on the internet that I like the looks of, and I put them all together, and I just let them, like maybe while I'm sewing, I might let them just play on my computer screen, just to inspire me, just to give, if I see garments I like that are the colors I like the way something was cut, and sometimes I stop and go, I could do something kind of like that right here on my piece. So I encourage you to look at go on Etsy and look at upcycled garments, and if people offer like here classes, and I don't care if you use any of this information to make money, make things for yourself, that's why it's here. That's how you learn and grow as an artist. All right, and tip number 4, I want you to try to think really outside the box when you shop. Check the children's section, the men's section, the women's, the linens, and even the jewelry section, because a lot of times you find little jewelry pieces you can put on zippers and things like that really or sew onto your pockets and things like that can add just a little bit of flair and color and fun. So you got to think outside the box when you're upcycling. It's artwork. You're literally creating artwork that people are wearing, whether you're selling it or you're the person wearing it. It's fun, and let's say you make something and you wear it 6 times and you think, I really like that other pocket on there. You can add it. It's fun to do. It's fun. And I encourage you. Tip number 5 seems obvious, but it's something I actually had to learn, is do not use really worn, even if it's beautiful fabric or whatever, stay away from really worn or sun damaged fabrics, because it's very heartbreaking to create a beautiful piece only to have it fall apart in the wash machine or to disappoint a customer. You have to think about, if you're selling, you got to think about the longevity of the garment when it goes to a customer. So tip number 5 is, even if you're tempted, don't use the really piled, worn, or old fabrics unless you're aware for yourself to wash it very carefully, because it's not going to last. Okay, my 6th tip is, once you create a piece you really like, real quickly, before you head on to another piece or anything else, write down sort of a little roadmap for yourself. What did you do to create that piece? Did you, what was the length you cut it off at? How long is the entire garment? What were the processes? Take pictures if you have to, or a little quick video with some tips for yourself to give yourself a way to recreate it, especially if you're selling and you want to recreate this item. Or maybe it becomes the favorite one in your wardrobe and you go, oh gee, I wish I could make that again. But you can't remember everything you did because, maybe you were in the moment and you put it together, but then you don't, 3 weeks, 4 weeks later, you can't remember how you did it. Just make yourself some notes. You can name it, which one it was, what it looked like, whatever, and make yourself a little roadmap to return to so you can recreate the garment that you loved and that you made, or that sold really well. So that is my next tip, tip number 6. Oh, tip number 7 is make the item, before you make items for gifts or before you make them for a shop, make them for yourself first. And the reason why is it's easier. You know the colors you like, even the styles you like, the length you like. You can wear it, see if it's a good garment. If you really, really like it, then you can probably pretty much count on that somebody else is going to like it. So now you can make it as a gift. You can make it for if you have an Etsy shop. And so that's tip number 7. number 8 is when you collect clothing pieces and jeans, shirts, or whatever, keep them in the same color groups. So that if you say, I want to make a pink and purple one, you've got your color groups together. And it'll make it a lot easier putting a piece together. I do this a lot of times in my patchworks. I use shoe boxes for scraps, and I'll throw like all my red in one shoe box, all my, those plastic shoe boxes, and I'll put like all my blues in another one, and so on. And if I get a blue one full, I just start another blue one. So when you go to do patchwork, or you're going to work on something, on your shelves, I stack my fabrics and clothing on shelves, and you can color coordinate them, or at least have them where you can see them. And that's what I suggest. So tip number 8 is to color coordinate the clothing that you're going to collect to upcycle, because you got to think sort of in groups. You may not have everything there at once, but you find as you begin to collect it, you say, hey, I have enough for this piece now. So I suggest to collect things in colors, use shoe boxes for your pieces, and it'll make it a lot easier. Okay, tip number 9 is remember that you're an artist. So when you see, let's say you're out gardening or something, or you're out somewhere, and you have an idea all of a sudden for a piece, take the time to jot it down on a piece of paper. Have a notebook maybe even in your car, and jot out what you imagined. Shopping sometimes will give you ideas, because you'll see an outfit you like or something. You say, hey, I could make something that swings like this. That's how they did that. If you take a few minutes you can even snap some photos or whatever, but to just jot down your ideas, because you will forget. As time you're working and doing things, as time goes on, you're likely to forget your really good ideas. So take the time to jot them down. That's tip number 9. Okay, tip number 10 to me is one of the most important tips, that if you skip this one, it can mean a lot of time with a seam ripper. And so I've left this tip to the very last, because it is really important, is every now and then, as you're moving and progressing with your garment, put it on a hanger or a mannequin and stand back and look at it. Because there are many tendencies that, I tend to want to drop the pockets way too low. And you will see before, if you pin the piece on, pin your pockets in place. A lot of times before you actually sew something in place, you can pin it, hang it up, put it on a mannequin or wherever, stand back and look, because it'll save you so much time from seam ripping and so much grief if you just take the time. One of the things you'll notice when you put it up on a hanger is the color balance of the garment. Is it off? Are you getting too much color, too much bright in one place and not enough in another? You will see as you go along, if you do this, that you're going to save yourself a lot of time by simply stepping away from it, hanging it up, stepping back, look at your garment, front and back, make sure you turn it and see what it looks like as you're going along. I really suggest doing this. Sometimes I get in a rush and I don't want to do it, and then I regret it, because you got to go back in, you got to seam rip. So that's my 10 tips for the upcycling mindset. I hope it helps somebody. If you have an idea or something that's really blessed you that you use, please put it in the comments section down below. And thank you everybody for liking, sharing, and subscribing. I am just absolutely shocked how many subscribers I have already. And you guys are awesome and amazing, and thank you so, so much. I really appreciate it. And until next time, happy sewing.